This episode is brought to you by Multifamily Media Network, delivering the latest news, ideas, and inspiration across the multifamily sector. Now, welcome to the Unconventional Project. I'm your host, Vanessa Grayson, and for the past few years, I've been navigating the multifamily industry on my own terms, embracing my authentic self, if you will. It's been a wild ride filled with triumphs and challenges, success and imposter syndrome, doubts and shortcomings, but one thing is clear: there's no single pathway to success. The mission of the Unconventional Project is to shine a light on the thoughts and experiences of other uniquely cultivated leaders and processes who have taken an unconventional pathway to achieve their goals. We're here to celebrate the diverse and creative minds that need to be heard, to collaborate on the joys and struggles of authentic, unique leadership, and simply bring our whole selves to a table designed for everyone. Are you ready? It's time to embrace the unconventional. Hey everyone, you're listening to a new episode of the Unconventional Project brought to you by Multifamily Media Network. I am your host, Vanessa Grayson, and I'm so excited to be back with you all for this episode. As always, if you want to keep up with all the latest episodes that are dropping, be sure to visit any of the platforms that I am on. It would be Spotify, you've got Apple Podcasts, you've got YouTube, but an amazing place to visit. Please visit multifamilymedianetwork.com. Outside of my podcast, the platform hosts a numerous amount of phenomenal podcast hosts, and all of their content, it's phenomenal to keep up with. I'm sure that there's something for everyone on there. There's leasing, there's maintenance, there's visionary, there is marketing. There's so many amazing individuals bringing knowledge and insight, experience, advice, guidance, all of the above to one centralized location so that you can really just share in all this information. Sharing is absolutely caring. And so shameless plug to drop all of my other podcast hosts to you all. So be sure to subscribe to theirs as well. It's no secret, my microphone will be red for the duration of this episode and any episode I'm recording leading up to the Super Bowl. We're so excited for that here in Kansas City. And yeah, it's just, we're building the hype in our household. It's sparking a lot of conversations in our household. I'm sitting down with my kids every night. We're hyped. It's Spirit Week at school this entire week. And most recently, we had an opportunity to sit down together at the dinner table and really just kind of discuss what's going on in our world. As most of everyone knows, football is not the only sport we love in this house. We are a huge basketball family as well. So my son plays youth basketball, and quite honestly, a conversation at the dinner table most recently is what put this episode together for me, because so much of what he's experiencing in his youth basketball world are things that I'm experiencing and have experienced in the past in my corporate role world and in the multifamily industry in general. We know I love a good opportunity to be humbled by my 9-year-old son. He has the oldest soul and so much wisdom. And sometimes I'm just so unsure of where his logic comes from. And I really had to take an opportunity, so much so that we were at the dinner table. Like, I ran over into my office, I grabbed a notebook and I grabbed a pen and just kind of started jotting things down as we were talking. And something that, we're talking about here in our family is his youth basketball team and really just embracing the unique age that the team is at as a whole, right? So for context, my son is 9. Most of the boys are 9 and 10 years old in the 3rd or 4th grade. And so they're just at very unique ages where they're learning themselves. They're learning what it means to be a team. They're learning different aspects of youth sports overall. So structure and consistency and development, and just really embracing the opportunity to grow as an individual, but then to grow together as well. And as he's talking to me, he's a rambler. So I really just sit back. I take it all in because he's had time to really wrap his head around it. Team culture and company culture truly have so many things in common, right? And so I really want to talk a little bit about company culture, why it's so important in the corporate structure, why it's so important in, the multifamily world overall, and just the commonalities that I really wanted to set forth as I'm working through this with my son, right? And to really think that if my 9-year-old can pull it together and pull it together in a manner that is very black and white, there's no reason that you would think that companies can't pull it together in a very black and white sense as well. So from our conversation, here are a few things like I really want to touch on that are kind of what feel like the bread and butter of culture overall, like a team culture and or a company culture. Teamwork is absolutely essential. Black and white, right? Like I say it and it's hard to like even think that can go deeper than what it is, but teamwork is so very black and white. So from my son's perspective, you've got, let's say, 8, 9, 10 boys that make a full bench on a team. And something that they're working through right now is learning each other just as well as they believe they know themselves. Keep in mind, at their age, we can't even really say that they truly know themselves. But as they look to learn and grow and develop, they're getting to know themselves even more, but having to learn the people that are around them, learn the strengths of the other players on the court, learn opportunities that they have to improve, and just knowing who's on the floor with you at all times, what they're capable of, which ultimately allows opportunity to understand what you all are capable of together. You learn where the missing piece is. You learn where you can fill the gaps. You learn how you can collaborate. And you have to do it at such a fast pace on that floor, right? The game is not stopping for you. The clock's not stopping for you. It's going to continue to move. And so with that being said, like you really just have to learn to trust each other on the floor. Same thing goes into company culture. Success is truly dependent on the people that you have in specific seats and those individuals knowing that collaboration wins, right? Trust wins, collaboration wins, communication wins. Same thing as in youth basketball, basically knowing who's on your court, who your key players are, who your kind of hidden gem players are, what their strengths are, where can they continue to develop, how it is that you as an individual, even as you're learning yourself, can continue to develop them so that ultimately the team wins as a whole. So it sounds so cliche, right? But there truly is no I in team. And my son could not have laid that out in a more simplistic way for me as a 32-year-old adult to just go look back on and say, you know what? Like, it seems like the easiest concept to understand, but probably one of the hardest at the same time. Going back to that, what that builds for you is just kind of another point that he brought to my attention. So they took a very harsh reality check, so to say, because they are a very successful team. They are a team of very talented kids and happen to have a weekend where I don't think talent won in their specific instance. I think work ethic suffered. I think foundation cracked. I think lack of communication won. I think they didn't necessarily lose from a talent perspective. They lost from a multitude of different things. However, the loss doesn't really mean, while it means something in the moment, right? The steps that you take after the loss, I feel like are what mean more, or more specifically to my son, the steps that he takes after a loss is what means the absolute most to him. So I'm going to put his business out there. I know he's not going to listen to this. Don't shade my son, y'all, because this team is actually really, really good. But they took a loss. I believe it was like 40-8. And something that really sticks out about my son and kind of leads me into this next point is that game was, I want to say, like 11 a.m. We were home. He was showered. He was relaxing. We had a Chiefs game that Sunday. He had a silent basketball in his hand for the entire duration of the Chiefs game, would literally get up every single commercial break and start dribbling. And his mentality after a loss is something that's so important, because I think a strong culture builds resilience. I say that from his perspective because if the culture was diminished in any way, or if the culture was weak in any way, or he didn't have the mental awareness and the mental toughness to understand that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to, I hate using the word fail because nothing's ever really a failure, but it's absolutely okay to fall short of your goal, but it's all about what you take from it and how you choose to move forward. That shows your absolute true character and who you are at the end of the day. Again, such a black and white concept that as I'm sitting and talking to my son, I'm just kind of thinking like, a culture does build resilience, right? A positive company culture truly allows its team members to understand that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay if you don't understand something. It's okay if you're not always the shining star. You're not always in an aspect of just doing these wonderful, incredible things, but maybe you are the person that's making small changes day over day, and you're stacking bricks, and it's a brick by brick situation, and you're building positive habits to reach your goal. It's completely okay to look at a setback and take some time to sit in it so that you can grow from it and you can move forward from it, versus being reprimanded for your faults, being reprimanded for any mistakes that you make, being chastised for, feeling like you can't raise your hand in a scenario and say, hey, I need something. Hey, I need a tool. Hey, I need a resource. Hey, I just need some assistance, some clarity, some understanding, whatever it is. Having that strong culture does not allow resilience to shine through. If you have a culture that's constantly tearing people down, like doing nothing to build them up in the process, it truly is a setback for how people are able to move forward and navigate challenges and setbacks for the future. A big thing that we talked about was accountability. And I really want to spend like some extra time on this one in particular, because again, it's very much what would be deemed more of a willing culture. And the team is kind of going through a shift where we are wanting to continue to grow, continue to challenge the boys, really work through understanding that it's time to step it up a notch. Like, you're dominating in the space that you're in, and it's okay to take on a challenge so that we can still continue to peel back those layers and develop what needs to be developed. And so accountability was a really unique word to use for the weekend. But Kingston absolutely knows what accountability is and accountability means. And he is the first one to, get in the car after any game, honestly, that he plays. And he asked me, hey, what is it that I could work on? And I always ask him, like, you tell me, what did you see from yourself? What do you feel like you could have done better at? Is there anything that you feel like you excelled at? How do we keep working on that? And we have these really open and transparent conversations. And one of the big things for him is accountability. I never want to say he's too hard on himself, but he's a very logical thinker. And he oftentimes thinks of things that he could have done himself before he will go to shift and point and blame at anyone else. And I love that aspect about him 100%. But accountability is key in a team culture, right? And so at 9 and 10 years old, for all of these kids to in some way, shape, or form be able to look at themselves and understand their level of effort and their, their coach used a phenomenal word over the weekend, which was discipline. Discipline is a hard one because we're always so quick to probably set discipline to the side, and lack of discipline is sometimes what leads to some of these other things that are leading to you having to take accountability for the role that you played. But ultimately, coaches are holding players accountable for their effort and their discipline and their execution of all of their skills on the court. And vice versa, the players hold their coaches accountable to be leaders, to empower them, to encourage them, to correct them, to guide them. And it's all full circle. There's just a full circle moment. We as parents are holding the referees accountable to call a fair game, to make smart choices with their calls, to keep our children safe to the extent of making sure calls are consistent and, are compliant with the rules of youth basketball in general. And so, shifting over to accountability and company culture, I oftentimes feel like there is a complete miss with accountability and company culture. And I think we are very quick to put the accountability on a policy or a procedure or a company event, and that's what's supposed to keep morale going, or policy changes that roll out, and, we're quick to dissect them. However, I will say this: every single member of the company has to be accountable for the culture in the company, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone plays a role. That role ties somewhere into the org chart. And while I say that, I also offset that with the fact that company culture is almost a subjective thing, right? And so the same way that someone over here in the org chart can depict or have a perception of what they feel like integrity is, someone over here in the org chart may look at integrity, do it through a different lens. May look at integrity, may not prioritize integrity as high as someone else over here in the org chart would. I think there's a lot that is left up to interpretation, especially like even going back to companies setting core values and thinking that core values is the culture, but the accountability that each individual team member has to execute the core values is what feels like where the accountability component comes into place, right? But I do believe that there is not a single role that should not be holding themselves accountable for how those values are executed, what their output is in everyone's day-to-day that they go to interact with in, for their responsibilities, for their contributions to the team, whether that be results or how they show up that day. Accountability is absolutely key. So that kind of leads me to, those are some very specific key points that my son was talking about. But I really want to touch on kind of one final one that I was able to take away from our conversation. And, as a mom or as a parent in general, I'm sure any parent can relate to this. I think we look at our children and we hope that whatever it is they do, whatever it is that they want to be, whatever it is they inspire to be, whoever it is that they wish to become, that they do it with a level of passion. So for me specifically, I'm having these conversations with my son, and trust me, we have them quite a bit. And now they've, of course, started with my daughter as well. But I'm having these conversations with my son and I'm listening. Sometimes I just find myself completely tuning out what he says, and it's not intentional, but I'm just looking at him and I am just watching him speak about the game that he loves so much. I'm watching him. I'm watching everything, his body language, the way that his facial expressions turn, the tone of his voice, the emphasis on, certain aspects of what he's talking about when it comes to the game. But my son is so incredibly passionate about the game of basketball, and it really leads me to believe like he is the prime example of passion driving success. Success is subjective, right? Because he has short-term goals, he has long-term goals. So success is very subjective. Every single day that he comes home from practice or we get home from a tournament after that long weekend, I look at my son and, he's absolutely 100% successful in my eyes. However, for him, his passion and his love for what it is that he does is really fueling what he defines as successful. And I think that is so important because it seems, once again, like such a black and white concept. And it is also such a black and white concept when it comes to our multifamily companies, when it comes to our, our property management teams, our asset management teams, our supplier partnerships. Loving what you do breeds the most genuine, unique, unconventional, just high peaking results. And I think that in so many companies, we miss out. We're so policy, and don't get me wrong, I totally understand that policies are in place for a reason, procedures are in place for a reason. I completely understand that, but I also do believe a team member who believes in the mission of the company, who truly understands and watches people in our executive leadership roles and in our mid to senior level leadership roles and so on and so forth. Team members who watch people lead from the seat that they're in are ultimately more engaged with the company overall and produce at a higher level. We have a desire, we have a burn, we have a passion to drive that level of success. And I truly do believe that to my heart of hearts. And I can't wait to, I have plans for a very special guest to be on some future episodes with me. And we're going to talk about things that are culture killers. And I absolutely cannot wait to put that together. But until we get to that, I think there's so many different like things that my son's experiencing that I've had an opportunity to experience, and sometimes still do experience, because company culture is one thing that we will never stop developing and we will never stop working toward, because again, times are going to change. Policies are going to change. The way we do things are going to change, and we have to be able to adapt. So, through that process, adaptability will win, but a strong company culture will never steer you off track when those obstacles do come into place and we do start to face those challenges. So, to wrap this up, I want to really just challenge all of you to see company culture from as black and white as you can break it down. Really start to dissect the things that help to build up a strong company culture. So ultimately, culture helps attract and retain top talent, right? But what do we do to really say, like, we thrive in a strong company culture aspect? We need to dig into things like leadership. Is leadership setting the tone? Is a teamwork mentality like really essential for every single one of our team members? Does everyone understand the role that they're in and the role that they play in the company to help achieve the goals that have been set? How do we prioritize talent and development? And is that something that is even a priority for us? And are we continuing to work through that, not on a scheduled basis of like, bi-weekly we host this training, but talent and development isn't absolutely an everyday thing. And it's not something that we should just be going through the motions on. Do we understand that a strong culture helps us to build a level of resilience that is absolutely untouchable untouchable. Do your team members know that it's okay to make a mistake because they feel supported in the comeback? They feel supported in the learning opportunity that, they are given the opportunity to have. Do we understand that accountability is key, and every opportunity we have to be accountable for the way that something turned out there's nothing wrong with that, to take a step back and say, you know what? That's on me. You know what? I didn't bring my full self to the table that day. You know what? I did, miss this step in the process resulting in this. And to understand that having those moments with yourself, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Are we working through the ways that we adapt to things and truly understanding that adaptability does win, but ultimately is the passion of your team members helping to drive the success in company culture overall, or in the goals or the mission that you have for your company. So I would really challenge you as an individual to dig into some things today. If you have to, call me up. I'll let you talk to my son. He'll give you his whole youth basketball thought process, and I would love for you to see it in a more black and white manner. But what is something that you can start implementing today that truly, takes any single one of these concepts and that allows you to begin to work that into your team? The hope would be you can, again, stack bricks day over day. We're 1% better every day at developing the culture that we have in our workplace that will ultimately lead to some absolutely incredible things and some incredible results over time. I am so looking forward to talking about in the very near future culture killers and how we're going to overcome those culture killers. And I cannot wait to, have my guest on with you all to talk through those things. But until then, I'm so excited that you've joined me today for this episode. If you've made it to the end, thank you so much. Again, don't forget to subscribe to all the platforms that my podcast rolls out on so you can stay alerted for any new episodes that are dropping. You can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube, the Unconventional Project. You can also visit Multifamily Media Network. If you love my podcast, I know that you're going to love so many others. So make sure that you browse around, look at some of our bios, look at some of the content. You're going to find a podcast guest that relates to you fully. But again, thank you so much for spending time with me. Depending on when this episode drops, go Chiefs. Sorry, Eagles fans, but go Chiefs. We're so excited for the upcoming week and wishing my Kansas City Chiefs a win as well as you a win. I hope that you have a daily, weekly, monthly win, a yearly win. I hope that you are out there absolutely just crushing everything that you're after. Until next time, bye. You made it to the end of the episode. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. The Unconventional Project is the table I've always dreamed of, a place where the seats never run out, where we celebrate life's experiences, big and small, and where our hunger for knowledge is never satisfied. Today, I hope you feel empowered to embark on your personal path to success, embracing every aspect of who you are, what you've been through, and the growth that lies ahead. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a review, and share it with your network. And remember, this podcast is proudly brought to you by Multifamily Media Network, your trusted source for stories, trends, and insights in multifamily living. The most successful project you'll ever work on is the unconventional one, the project that is uniquely you. Stay connected and see you soon.